don't buy the car if you can't pay for it twice in cash. And I believe that's the principle he speaks about. But we utilize this same principle in our household. If we can't afford to pay it off in cash twice, then we don't buy it. Because otherwise, your stuff starts to own you versus you owning your stuff. And I don't believe in working myself to death just to try to pay off my debts, because I've lived that life and it's stressful and it's overwhelming, and it doesn't have to be that way if you can learn to live within your means. And very simple principles, right? Just try to spend less than what you make. Hello everyone, Micah Smith here. I am back with another episode of Rebuild and Rise, and I am going to be talking about a topic that is very near and dear to me. And I was driving this morning on my way to the office, and I was listening to Layla Hermosi for the 19th time, and I'm the queen of repeat. And she talked about people having a saving problem. And I actually really want to address this because obviously I'm in the credit space and I help people with their credit and their finances all day, every day. And I feel like we need to get to the root of the problem. And right, people are so petrified that they're not going to have enough money when they retire. And they're right. A lot of people won't. I think she said the statistic is that 40% of Americans don't have even an excess of $400 to be able to deal with a rainy day. And that's a problem. And so what she had alluded to, and what I actually agree with, is that if you don't have the ability to save, you either have a spending problem or you have a skill set problem. And so what I want to talk to you about today is getting to the root of the issue. And so a question that we will get all of the time, or a question that we might have for someone, we might ask them, are you able to save money? So most of our clients are trying to buy a home. So if somebody says to us, I just can't save, or if I have a best friend that says, I just can't save, here's the first thing that I'm going to ask them. The first thing I'm going to ask them is I'm going to ask them, what are you spending your money on? Let's literally look at your very last purchase. And to everyone who's listening here, if you're struggling with saving, I want you to do something. I want you to evaluate your last few purchases. Okay. And so again, remember, Ed Milet says it all the time, you're most qualified to help the people that you used to be, or the person that you used to be. And this used to be me. So before I got into the place where I was financially free and where I was financially sound, there were a lot of moments where I had to get very real with myself. Hey, I'm not doing the right things here. And I'm talking, this was before I was sober, before I had my company. I had debt. I had a problem. And they say that change either comes from inspiration or desperation. And for me, it was desperation. I was desperate. I was sick and tired of living the way that I was living and living paycheck to paycheck, feeling like, God forbid, something were to happen tomorrow. Say my company went out of business. Say I lost my job, whatever it may be. How would I live moving forward? And I didn't like having that feeling of being unsettled. What would happen if my car broke down? What would happen if I needed to replace something of significance, right? Do you have the funds to be able to do that? And people talk about fear all of the time. And there's good fear and there's bad fear. And I think when you think about fear, it's having an awareness that something could go wrong. And I don't think that you should be afraid necessarily of things going wrong, but you should be aware of the fact that life happens. It's just how it works, right? We exist on this earth and things fall apart, things break, things are fallible, like nothing. The only guarantee is that there is no guarantee. And so when we're breaking down why someone is unable to save, that question of what have you most recently spent your money on, that's a question that only you can answer. And so for me, when I was in that place of struggle, when I was looking at my finances, when things would be tumultuous, it was usually when I was drinking. And so when I would drink, I would do things that I was not normally doing. And I would spend a lot of money on Ubers and I would spend a lot of money on food. And then I would be like, oh, drinks for everyone, when I actually really didn't have the money to do that. And I was living on credit. And in fact, I even remember a time where I was dating someone and I wanted to impress them. And so I bought a very expensive jacket and a very expensive pair of sunglasses that was very uncharacteristic of me. I was not really that type of person that fell in love with labels or things of that nature. I never felt like my value came from that, but I wanted to buy these things in front of them. And in fact, they were almost borderline mortified because they were in the finance space and they were like, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And I did it. And even Morgan Housel talks a lot about nobody is as impressed by the things you own as you are. Most people don't care the house you live in, the car you drive, the clothes you wear, right? And if they do, that's probably not someone that you want to spend any time around anyway. Because if they find value in you because of what you wear or what you drive or the house you live in, that's not a quality individual. So run from them if that's the person that is flocking to you because of what you own or drive or wear. So, but I want to talk about what it was like being that person and just constantly having the setbacks and the struggle of being like, I'm overspending and I'm spending in ways that I shouldn't be spending. And what that was like, there's this underlying feeling that I'm not in alignment with my purpose. And there's a better way. That investments exist, right? I'm in this world of real estate and credit and finance. And here I am in the world of credit, right? And not even my credit was perfect yet because I still had to knock out all of my debt and all of my bills. And so one day I just decided enough is enough. And so I made a decision, and my decision was this, is I said, okay, I'm going to nix all unnecessary spending. And for me, this was not hard. This was no eating out. This was meal prepping every day. This was not getting my nails done. This was my hair. I had grays and I would color my hair with box dye. I know my hairstylist, when I finally went to them to fix it, they were like, oh my gosh, but listen, I had to do what I had to do. And right, I didn't look any different. I didn't feel any different. I didn't go out. I didn't buy new clothes. I shopped at the thrift store. And slowly but surely, so I take out this personal loan. I pay off all my credit cards. Everything extra went towards paying off that personal loan early. And I promised myself I would never get into that position ever again. And that was about 10 years ago. And to this day, I have never put myself into that position again. But it was just this looming feeling, and it just sits over you like, oh my gosh. If you've ever sat there with $10,000 of credit card debt, which they say the average American has just a little over $10,000 of credit card debt, right? You're sitting here with all of this debt and it's just looming over you, and you're making your minimum payments every single month. And you're just like, okay, I'm eventually going to get out of this, but without a real plan, how? How do you plan to get out of this someday, somehow, when most of your money is going towards the interest? Because most of the credit cards, the interest that we're carrying was 24 to 29% on most of these credit cards. So ultimately, you have to have this plan in order to get out of debt. And I just know what it feels like someday I'm going to get out of this debt. And you're sitting here with all of this debt and you feel like, you look around and you're like, what did I even spend my money on? Where is it? Is it the tangent? Where are these things? And that's what I remember feeling like. Where are these things that I bought? I don't feel like I have anything to really show for it. And that's why we always ask people, what is the last thing of real value that you ever purchased? And that's why when we talk to our clients and we talk to them about restoring their credit back to a healthy state, we're like, this is an investment, because it's the only type of investment that truly will pay you back 100-fold for the rest of your life. And so now the purchases that I make, they're going to return on themselves 100-fold. And so I invest heavily into education. I invest heavily into people. I invest heavily into assets that appreciate, right? And I don't spend a lot of money on furniture. I don't spend a lot of money on clothes. I don't spend a lot of money on decor. I spend a lot of money on things that are important, right? And again, that's investing in maybe coaches or team members that come in that are going to take our business to another level. There's so many little things that I invest in now that in prior years, like I had a scarcity mindset versus an abundance mindset. And so for me, I think the importance of being able to shift the mindset of, right, okay, let me come up with a plan and let me make a decision to cut unnecessary spending. It really is going to be a situation where you're going to have to just get very real with yourself, and you're going to have to say, I'm committed to saving. And saving is really important because, again, and there's earlier podcasts that I've done. In the very first season, I did a great podcast with a woman who did all of the planning, and she planned on the plan not going according to plan. And her husband got into a very bad accident where it left him basically mentally incapacitated for a very long time. And so she had to fend for her family and for herself. But because she had been so smart with her money all of these years, her family didn't have to struggle unnecessarily because she had planned for all these years. What if something does go wrong? And that's what I want everyone to think of today, is the choices that we make now are going to impact us tomorrow, whether it's for the good or for the bad. And so I wanted to make this something that was super simple, and I want to make it so that way you can tangibly take something away from this episode, becoming a better version of yourself. So before you go to spend today or tomorrow, before you swipe the card, I want you to ask yourself, why am I swiping? And does this get me closer to the version of me that I want to be in a year from now, in 5 years from now, in 10 years from now? If I continue down this same path and I decide not to change it, what does that look like 1 year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? That's a really scary thought, right? Because habits compound on themselves, whether good or bad. And so if we maintain the same habits that we have been maintaining for quite some time to get us to where we are, if we don't like the position that we're in, then something needs to change. And hopefully from this podcast, I'm hoping that it's inspiration, not desperation. But either way, it doesn't matter. Change needs to happen. And things are constantly evolving around us, left and right. And the one thing that I would love for everyone to take off of their shoulders is, what would I do if catastrophe were to happen tomorrow? If you own a home, if my hot water heater went out, if my furnace broke, if my roof needs new shingles, if I've got to replace the entire roof, what happens if my car breaks down? What happens if I get sick? What happens if I lose my job? What is the plan that you have in place? And I'm not doing this to scare you, but I want you to think about, what would I do if something were to happen? And I want you to start implementing great habits now, just a little bit a week, a little bit a week, a little bit a week. $5 a day, $1 a day. It can be something small, and make it so it's the first thing you do. So when you get your paycheck, so something that I religiously practice now, right after I got out of debt, first thing I do when I have any major purchase, so any big purchases, I truly pray on. And this is something my pastor talks about a lot, is I pray on big purchases, and I don't make them impulsively, and I don't buy something when I am fatigued. So I am most alert. I'm a morning person. So I make big purchases first thing in the morning when I've had that cup of coffee, when I'm super excited and I'm in this energetic, happy place of mind. And if I've slept on it even a few nights and I still can't think, I still can't stop thinking about it, and I'm invigorated at the thought of purchasing this, then I continue with the purchase. But a lot of times what you'll find is that you might sleep on it a couple of nights, and then all of a sudden, whatever it was you were thinking about, it loses its luster. And the other thing that I do as well is I always try to remember, like, where does this put me? Does it put me closer to my goal of who I want to be in a year or 5 or 10 years from now, or does it take me further away? And what is my goal and objective from purchasing this thing? And if I purchase this thing, say for instance, if I buy a program that is educational, I'm like, can I actually and realistically commit to using this at the time level that it requires in order for me to be successful with this product? And if the answer is yes, if I'm like, yes, I can commit to it, then I'm like, okay, then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make the purchase. And of course, there's a lot of things that I purchase that are fun, right? But that there's a designated chunk of money that I have for just fun. And so get very good at being able to, so when you get paid, make sure it's automatic. So that was one thing I was telling you earlier that I stopped. So when I get paid, what I have set up is I have it automatically set up where my financial advisor, where he actually just takes the funds right out of my bank account. I don't even see it. It's like it doesn't even exist, and it's just in a completely different account. And so I learned this from Grant Cardone, and he teaches, and it took me a very long time to be able to do this. And mind you, I've been in this business for over 13 years. And again, positive compounds on itself. The paychecks that I now make, I'm able to put away roughly about 60% of my paycheck every single month, right? And I give that to my financial advisor and we invest it every single month because again, I want to plan for the future and I want to be able to live a life where when I'm at a certain point in life, I don't want to have to work to pay my bills. I want to work because I enjoy what I do and not because I own things, right? A lot of times people's things start to own them. And I implore all of you to, when you buy something, just ask yourself, how long is this going to take me to pay off? And can I pay it off 2 or 3 or 4 times over? And Grant Cardone even talks about this principle a lot, but even a car, don't buy the car if you can't afford to pay for it twice in cash. And I believe that's the principle he speaks about. But we utilize this same principle in our household. If we can't afford to pay it off in cash twice, then we don't buy it, because otherwise your stuff starts to own you versus you owning your stuff. And I don't believe in working myself to death just to try to pay off my debts, because I've lived that life and it's stressful and it's overwhelming, and it doesn't have to be that way if you can learn to live within your means. And very simple principles, right? Just try to spend less than what you make. And so it takes us back to the beginning of the podcast where it's like, if you cannot save money, it's either a skills problem or it's a spending problem. And so the biggest thing that I want you to take away from today's episode is I want you to take away from the fact that you are fully capable of saving, and you are fully capable of giving yourself mental peace when it comes to your finances. But it has to start with you. You have to, one, be honest with yourself, and you have to come up with a plan, and you have to commit to that plan. And I'm going to tell you, it's not glamorous. It's not fun. It's frustrating because you're going to want to spend money on certain things. And I'm going to tell you now, you're going to have to sacrifice for the short term, for the long term, right? You have to always keep in mind, who do I want to be in a year from now, and 5 years from now, 10 years from now, even 50 years from now? And one great principle I would pass along to all of you, I read this really great book a long time ago, and it's by Tara Moore, and it's called Playing Big. And I can't believe I even remember this, but she talks a lot about the inner mentor versus the inner critic. And the inner mentor is, so I want you to talk to the version of yourself 20 years from now. Have the conversation with her or with him. And based off of that conversation, what would they say about what you're doing right now? And how would they talk to you? What's the advice that they would give you? And would they agree or disagree with the decisions that you're making? Would they agree or disagree with your thought process? That for me was a very grounding principle, because I think of the very evolved version of me in 20 years from now, and my goodness gracious, the things that I'm harped on and focused on right now, I'm like, in 20 years from now, is that going to matter? Abso-freaking-lutely not, right? So make sure you listen to your inner mentor and not your inner critic, because the two voices are very different. I hope this really helps you, because I know how important finances are. I know how stressful it can be when they're out of alignment. I've done so many podcasts on finances. And of course, the credit component, which we didn't talk about today, is so critically important. But once you knock out all your credit card debt, that's literally over 30% of the battle when it comes to your credit score. And I've talked about before in the past, and stories tend to resonate more with people, but I've talked about so much in the past how much your credit card debt is driving your credit score. And so I'm going to give you a story. We had a young lady who came to us, and she came to the program, and there were some negative things that were suppressing the credit score, and we got them removed. And she reached out and I still don't understand why my credit score is still at a 590. All the negatives are gone. And we looked at the credit report, and it's because all of her credit cards were maxed out, or even some of them were over the limit. And we're like, listen, once you get these balances down, your scores are going to go through the roof. So she's thinking, okay, maybe 50 points, maybe 60 points. She's thinking she's still probably going to be in the 600s. Sure enough, right? So she had a ton of closings come up. And so she is a broker. And so she reaches out and she shows us her credit score after she had paid off all of her credit cards. Guess where she was? She was at an 802. And your credit impacts everything. And I was actually asked a really good question is, what is that like when your credit is not where it needs to be, when your debt is magnificently high? And my answer was, it's unquantifiable, because the things that you don't do, the businesses that you maybe don't start, the opportunities that you can't take advantage of, right? When your credit is suppressed, there's certain jobs you won't even be able to get. It's literally unquantifiable, right? This debt that you have that looms over you, the credit score that stays suppressed. My question to you is, if you decide to make a better choice and you decide to just one day after another, and all of a sudden a year goes by, when your credit gets magnificently better, and when your debt goes away, what does that free you up to do? Who is the person that you're going to become? And by not doing these things, I'm telling you, I know many people have put numbers behind it, and I've put numbers behind it. I've quantified before what your credit score costs you, but I truly believe it's unquantifiable, because it's so subjective per person, opportunities missed, which are endless. And so what we think is something small or trivial, it's incomprehensible what it could be keeping us from. And only we know deep down what we're being kept from because of the decisions we choose not to make. And I was that person for a very long time. And I don't believe in regret. I don't do regret. I believe that I am the person that I am meant to be, and I'm here, and I'm happy, and I'm grateful. And I just want you to know, though, I had to make a choice. And the first choice that I had to make was I had to get honest with myself. And I had to say, okay, what are you willing to change? What is a version of you that you're willing to let go? What habits are you willing to let die in order for you to become the person that you're supposed to become? And so I let versions of me die in order for me to become the woman that I was supposed to become. All right, guys, that's all I have for you today. God bless. Micah Smith, Rebuild and Rise. I'll see you next time. If this episode was an episode that you loved, please share it with someone that you know that needs to hear this. And please subscribe. And would you please be so kind as to leave us a review, because this helps us get it into the hands of more people that need to hear this information. God bless. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit like and subscribe. And if there's someone you know that this would help, please share this with them. If you are looking to fix and repair your credit, you can find us at www.micaabigail.com. And if you're looking for more personal stories on myself, you can find me at
Fit Credit Doctor. Thanks again for joining, and God bless.